like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting, September 25th, 2019. And the time is 6:33. I'd like to call a quorum. Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Mr. Pacelli.
Here.
Secretary Lukowitz.
Here.
Vice Chair Kalunian.
Here.
Chairman Flynn is here. We have two members excused tonight, would be Mr. Kenny and Mr. Ozenkowski. Okay, could we please stand for pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, in case of an emergency, the doors behind you lead out from the left to the right. And also, if you want to go out this door, it leads out to the back, the east side of the building. First, we have approval of minutes. 3.1, August 28th, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Mattson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, also 3.2, the September 11th site walk. Then I get a motion on that. Motion to,
I wasn't at the site walk.
on the site walk? So are the minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Motion to approve the minutes?
I approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Anderson, I have a second by Ms. Lukowitz. Any discussion on the site walk? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have number 4, ratification of decisions. Our first one is approval of master plan for a comprehensive permit for Willow Lakes. That's an AP 16 Lot 3 R20, the London Turnpike. And again, this is a ratification of a master plan that has already been approved.
I'll make a motion to ratify the decision for the master plan comprehensive permit at the Willow Lakes Independent Living. London Turnpike assessors plat 16 lot 3 in the R20 zone. It was the independent living community with assisted living and memory care facilities, 202 proposed units with 25% affordable.
I have a motion by Mr. Kalunian. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Second by Mr. Pacelli. Any discussion? Okay, now seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Our next ratification of a decision is the development plan or review at Riverview Nursing Home. It's AP 104, lots 81, 82, and 83, R20. That's 546 Main Street. Can I get a motion on that, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the development plan review for the Riverview Nursing Home, Inc. and Ryan Finance LLC at 546 Main Street. That's assessors plat 104, lots 81, 82, and 83 in the R20 zone.
Okay, motion by Mr. Kalunian, second by Mr. Mattson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 5, old business. We have a preliminary plan continued from September 4th on Crompton Meadows. Comprehensive permit for 80 single-family detached dwellings with at least 20% affordable. And I'd like to say master plan has been approved, but the fees were not approved and were pushed to preliminary. So anybody here representing the applicant? Come on.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Nicholas Goodyear. I'm here on behalf of Nicholas Goodyear. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. As this commission recalls, the matter was last before you folks substantively in August. The public hearing was closed, and the remaining issues revolve around the waivers requested and the relief it requested in association with the preliminary plan submission. Those have been delineated in the director's report, and the presentation that took place in August addressed those substantively. I appreciate Mr. Crossman pulling up the pertinent pages of the report that address that. If you have any particular questions with respect to the relief that we're looking for or the waivers that have been requested, we have representatives in addition to myself available.
For clarification from the board, if you wouldn't mind going over those.
And with respect to the fee waivers or the relief pertaining to actual regulations?
I think the fee waivers, and you also have zoning variances also that you're looking
Correct.
for.
So, as was discussed,
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to object for the record. If the public hearing is closed, there shouldn't be this stuff going on now. If the board has questions of its solicitor or staff, but I don't think that there should be a presentation if the public hearing is really closed.
right, I don't disagree with my brother. If
Staff?
that might be appropriate for your solicitor.
Mr. Chairman, as the board is aware, the public hearing was closed at the conclusion of the last meeting. So I think it was appropriate at least to ask for an overview just of the project. But really, the opportunity now is for the public to allow the commission to do its vetting of whatever it is that you decide to take up this evening in furtherance of the application.
Okay.
So, yeah, because we don't want this to appear to be an opening of a public hearing when that's not what the agenda
No, I
is.
stated the public hearing was
yeah.
closed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Point well taken.
And just for the record, my name is Andrew Teitz, T-E-I-T-Z, representing the town of East Greenwich. Thank you.
I'll say, we'll take them one at a time, I guess. Zoning variances and fee waivers. I don't know how the board wants to review and go over these, but I'd like to make one statement. I know most of the time when we have these, we waive on the affordable only. So as consistency, we've have done it in the past. I feel comfortable only waiving on the affordable. I don't know what the rest of the board feels comfortable, but we certainly can open discussion on that, whoever has any input. But myself, I'll waive on the affordable only. Anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before we get too far into this, because I do have some questions. First of all, for the Solicitor D'Agostino, was the issue resolved with the town of East Greenwich as to the detention basin that was straddling? That, I think, was one of the up and in the air items that was still pending.
So to answer your question actually, as I view it, has two components. One is from a technical standpoint, has the issue been resolved? I'd have to actually defer to Mr. Teitz to put information on the record as to answer that question. As to the issue of, and I think this is really what your question is, the issue of the intermunicipal agreement versus some other mechanism to address the potential for the East Greenwich drainage system failure and how East Greenwich would best resolve that. I've had a brief communication today with Mr. Teitz, as well as a brief discussion this afternoon with Mr. Goodyear, following on something that we talked about during the public hearing. It's my opinion, for a couple of different reasons, but it's my opinion that if this commission were inclined to approve the project, I don't think the intermunicipal agreement is the way to go. That's my opinion to you folks. But I do think it would be appropriate to make, subject to any approval, the condition that the homeowners association or the condo declarations, whatever documentation would be produced for this development, that those documents provide for a private contractual right for the town of East Greenwich to place liens on the on some or all of the Coventry properties, in the event that there is a failure of the drainage system in the East Greenwich property that then causes flow to the town of East Greenwich. I think that is an adequate protection. It doesn't go exactly to what Mr. Tights was requesting regarding that intermunicipal agreement. But it also, I think, allows this project to move forward, because one of my concerns, I have a couple of substantive concerns with regards to the intermunicipal agreement, but my practical concern is it puts, I think, putting that agreement in front of the Coventry Town Council puts the Town Council in a very difficult position, because essentially the Coventry Council would be allowing a neighboring town to enforce zoning against Coventry residents and taxpayers. And what I would hate to have happen is this commission make that a condition of approval, and for reasons that are outside of all of our control, the Coventry Town Council decides never to take that question up. It leaves the applicant in a state of limbo that it's just not acceptable. So I think that's why my recommendation would be to address any type of compliance issues and any type of mitigation issues, have those addressed within the condo documents or the HOA documents to give the relief that the town of East Greenwich has requested. I think their request for relief is reasonable. I just, for the reasons I've stated, I think the best way to do that is in the documents for the development, declarations, condo documents, HOA documents, rather than an intermunicipal agreement.
And for the applicant, is it HOA or is it condo docs? Or is that still up in the air? Because my understanding that it was condo.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's right. It's not too much of a differentiation there. So it will be a condominium.
It would be in the declarations.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to handle the zoning variances first? And move on to the subdivision regulation relief variances?
Well, we've got them all numbered. I think thank you to the planning director
Yes,
for doing a very nice
appreciate
job
that.
in trying to break these down. But I also just kind of wanted to recap. I mean, it's been a few weeks. I think the lot coverage to some degree speaks for itself. I don't know where we left off with wheel blocks. It just says relief that concrete curbing or asphalt berm be allowed as a suitable device. I think the discussion, that at least at one point, was the asphalt berm would not be acceptable, and the concrete curbing would be acceptable provided there was ample space between any walkways and vehicle parking areas. I mean, I understand why the wheel blocks aren't preferred, because they're a nightmare when you gotta go snow removal. But by the same token, I don't want someone pulling up to the curb and then popping somebody off on the sidewalk, because they were talked about a grass strip, 18 inches, 2 feet after the curb before the sidewalk, to prevent that, particularly where the mailboxes were.
I think your recollection was correct on that.
Yeah, the sidewalks, I think they gave a pretty good presentation on why interior sidewalks were preferred over sidewalks on all of the streets and throughways within the development. So, I mean, personally, I didn't see an issue, but just for discussion's sake, that's where I think that left off. The density, I think everyone was familiar with. The survey, I think there was still some question about the sufficiency of boundary markers be provided with regards to what the actual state guidelines are for professional surveyors, as well as the types of bounds, and there was a conflict with the town ordinance at least. Did you want to could you comment on that a little bit, Mr. Chairman? Because I know survey sufficiency boundary markers provided. I know.
Yeah, that was one that they asked for. What I did was I went on they had referenced the Rhode Island State Professional Land Surveyors Board. So I did go on there and I looked at what the technical standards were for monuments for a comprehensive boundary survey. And what they're looking for is, they say monuments shall be established at not less than 70% of all the corners in the boundary survey, which define a deflection angle that exceeds 60 degrees, and no point on a boundary shall be located more than 500 feet from a monument. And then it says monuments shall be established with section 198 of this part, and then when you look at section 198, it just describes different types of monuments. You can use stone or concrete bounds, metallic discs, drill holes, iron pipes, solid rods, and then foundations of corners and buildings. So basically, the staff has no problem with the boundary survey, being allowed to proceed as long as they, meet the requirements of the professional land surveyors.
There'll be no further subdivision, so it would just be the perimeter boundaries, correct?
Right, this would apply to the perimeter boundary of the survey. I looked, there was the only discrepancy they asked for, I'm sorry, let me just scroll down. You're on number 5? Okay. They requested sufficient boundary markers be provided in accordance with the rules and regulations. So yes, I agree that they can go to the state standard, which is the 70%. They did not ask for what type of markers. They didn't want to differentiate from what the town standard was that we allow. So as far as I was concerned, the town standard states in the subdivision regs that we shall be using granite bounding markers, lengths of 36 inches by 4 inches wide with a drill hole on the top. So it specifically stated those will be used. So I'd still like to see those granite used, but at the so that's where I'm at with regards to that.
So in other words, you're fine with the waiver as long as they use the types of boundaries that the town has in its regulations?
Right, because they didn't ask, they asked for relief with regards to the number of markers that had to be replaced. They didn't ask for relief with regards to the type of markers to be used.
Is that your understanding? I mean, can we ask them a question on that?
I don't know, you have to ask Mr. D'Agostino. Can he ask that question of the applicant?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to ask that question to clarify the staff's reports. It's a limited question. It's a fair question.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, the planning commission can't do its job.
I do have the comprehensive request with respect to the relief, that submission which was provided to you. It does request to have the ability to vary what type of bound the monument representing the particular bound. That submission is dated January 14th, 2019. That's the most recent submission, page 3 of 5. But
Okay, so that's fine. The board has a choice to make. I mean, what we're talking about is we're talking about the perimeter boundary. This is a triangular shaped lot. They're only setting, I believe, I don't know, there can't be more than there's three property corners? Okay, I understand. What Mr. Cato is referring to, it states that you couldn't have more than 500 feet. So I don't have a problem with if we were to put the granite in the property corners, but if you wanted to use a substitute for the granite every 500 feet, I think that's more than acceptable. Because it's the property corners are always going to be there, and that's what I really care about. Those iron pipes, if they use the iron rods, those could disappear. People pull them out of the ground, but you're not going to pull those concrete markers out of the ground, not without a great deal of effort.
we
So that's
don't have an issue
acceptable on
with
the
that.
corners of the property? Okay.
And again, according to state regulations, they wouldn't be set at every property corner. They just have to be set at 70% of the property corners. Okay, enough to reestablish that survey if another survey came on years later, so, okay.
Thank you. So number 6 is slopes and walls. I know I made a statement that we'd only want engineered walls, and I think that was agreeable. Anybody else has any questions on the slopes and the walls?
Was it-
That's
Wait.
number 6.
Did he, again, I think the applicant indicated there were some existing walls or boulder walls you were gonna, but only less than 4 feet. Anything over 4 feet would be engineered.
Engineered. So our ordinance says that no boulder walls to exceed more than 4 feet.
Correct. So anything that's proposed would be engineered in excess of 4 feet. So to the extent that there's existing conditions out there in areas that aren't going to be developed,
In the back of the property, that was
Correct.
my recollection.
Yeah.
And I think
so that's off.
I think
Tech,
we're- yeah, we're
it's
good.
on site but off site. I would characterize it.
Anybody else on number 6? Number 7 is fee relief requests. The applicant requests a full waiver of preliminary application fees. And like I've stated, on the affordable, for consistency, we have waived on affordable. I can't see where I would waive on all. I don't know if anybody else on the board has any opinion to that. But that's, the application fees. They want a full waiver on that.
I agree. It's best to stay consistent.
I agree. It's best to stay consistent with what we've been doing. I agree with your comments.
The applicant is okay with that? Can I ask that question or no? Okay, so we'll move on to number 8. Number 8 is applicant requests a full waiver of final application fees, and I state the same on that, affordable only. Anybody else on the board have any opinion on that?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On numbers 7 and 8, on the preliminary plan application, the same level of effort has to go into the application, whether it's affordable or not. You know, because that's basically the fees for the staff review and the application fees and all that. So whether it's affordable or not, we still have to go into the same effort. So you were willing to grant them, instead of the $1,850, you were willing to grant a 25% reduction on that? I mean, it's the board's discretion. I'm just asking. It's just,
I think we've done it in the past. I'm not positive, but I just wanted to stay consistent. I
okay.
think we've waived fees on affordable. Whether we've waived fees on the application fees, I'm not exactly sure. But I know we've waived fees on the affordable component. I don't know what the rest of the board feels on this.
Mr. Chairman, I don't mean to substitute my comments for the board's comments. I think that the commission in the past has waived the fair share development fees portion for the low and moderate income properties. I'm not sure that it's accurate that you've given a percentage reduction off of all of the fees, but I'll stand corrected by any board member who's
Saying
been
that,
here
I'll
longer
stand
than I.
corrected, because
Yeah.
I don't think the town's in any fiscal shape to waive any fees, but I want to stay consistent on the affordable applicant from the past.
I can absolutely assure the chairman and the board that when it comes to fair share development fees, and there's a significant amount of those in this project, the board has historically credited the low and moderate income housing units on those fair share development fees. And there are a number of those units in this development, so.
Right, and this is the discussion, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with the staff's comments on that. I mean, I would rather not waive anything that we didn't waive in the past. If it's the fair share part of it on the affordable, we didn't get to that yet, but.
Right. I just wanted to comment on that. Just
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions on number 8? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the affordable housing relief requested. That's number 9, and that is the fair share development. So, I'll state, as far as I'm concerned, just the affordable part of this, to be consistent with past applicants. Anybody else from the board have any?
That's fine.
Okay, ordinance of the town, Coventry release requested. That's the next section. It's tough to read with the blue.
Yeah, those are gonna be approved by the town council.
Those-
That's why they're blued out,
Okay.
to let you guys know that
So
you
we
won't be
voting on the blue section. It's tough to read on the blue.
They were supposed to be.
Miscellaneous additional fee related requests, that's E. And number 10 is the DPW sewer connection application fee. Anybody have any input? They're requesting a full waiver on that. I'm not inclined to waive that fee.
I agree.
Anybody else?
No.
Number 11, it's a DPW sewer connection inspection fee. Again, I'm not, I really wouldn't want to waive that. We have to pay our staff to do these. If anybody else has any comment on that, that's my opinion on number 11.
I agree again.
Okay, and number 12 is recording fees, and I say the same on that one.
Yes.
Stenographer fees, the same. On real estate fees, I'd like to defer to the staff on that one.
Thank you. I did speak with our tax assessor this afternoon, and he informed me, and I haven't got a chance to speak with Attorney D'Agostino about this, but he didn't feel that the Planning Commission had the right to defer or abate any real estate taxes. And what he said to me was, he says, if the applicant has any, there is a process for that to happen. If the applicant has any questions, he says, tell him to come see me tomorrow. He goes, I'll tell him how it's done. But he goes, he felt that was completely up and above this board. And he goes, this is something he does and knows how to do, and there's a process for it to be done. But it shouldn't be handled by this board.
Right, I would concur with that. Mr. Celeste is capable of assisting the applicant in this matter.
Okay, so it's number 14 is not in question. That will be handled internally. So is there any other questions on the fee waivers? And the zoning variances?
So that's the only matter that's before us tonight, is to just take these 1 through 14, 13 now, and throw it into a comprehensive motion, subject to the other thing. In other words, this was already approved except for these fee waivers, right? We're done?
You didn't make a motion to approve.
Right, that's.
Well, you just said it was all approved.
No. Did we make any motion? We haven't made any motion at all?
No, all you did was close the public hearing.
That's what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
so we continued the fee discussion, but we didn't.
Well, you continued the whole meeting, not just the fee
Okay, so
discussion.
we didn't.
You have to, you
Okay.
still have to come to a consensus.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page, Mr. Grossman.
Good question.
Okay. I'm gonna get back into this thing. Okay. No, I just want to make sure now, in the planning director's report, the earlier version, there are a number of items like the certificate of completeness, Crompton.
1 through 12.
Yeah, 1 through 12. Those still need to be adhered to. spelled out in the motion, or can we just adapt the planning director's report? Is there outstanding? I know, like, final approval from the local fire district. That's all been, right? An agreement from East Greenwich on the road opening must be ascertained. That's been obtained. King County Water's all set.
Right, and I
West Warwick-
believe I did list some stipulations, and those would be the only stipulations that would needed to, correct me if I'm wrong if I didn't.
Yeah. These two grading around the sand filters and the contour sand filter F and sediment. Those seem to be the only two stipulations from the town engineer and the planning staff, just two,
Correct,
on page 9.
correct.
And then we'll add one. Should be over here. Okay. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to approve the major land development comprehensive permit application for Crompton Meadows LLC, Assessors Plat 8, Lot 11.1 in the R20 zone. It's 22.58 acres, and it also includes, which I guess is outside of our jurisdiction, in East Greenwich, Assessors Plat 13, Lot 25, for 80 single-family detached dwelling units with 2 bedrooms each, with 25% of those units being deemed affordable or low income. The proposed development is consistent with the local needs as identified in the local comprehensive community plan, with particular emphasis on the community's affordable housing plan, and has satisfactorily addressed the issues where there may be inconsistencies. Coventry's affordable housing rate by the state's definition is 5.4%, compared with 8.3% in Rhode Island overall. In the town of Coventry, and the Coventry Housing Authority should continue to secure all available resources to provide housing for low, moderate income groups. The proposed development is in compliance with the standards and provisions of the municipality zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and/or where expressly varied or waived, local concerns that have been affected by the relief granted do not outweigh the state and local needs for low and moderate income housing. Considerations have been given to the proposal requiring 1 special use permit for multifamily use in an R20 zone. The proposed density of dwelling units at 1 unit per 11,000 square feet exceeds the standard baseline density for the R20 zone, as well as the absolute maximum development density permitted for the R20 zone cluster multifamily development of 1 dwelling unit per 10,000 square feet. The application sought full waivers of several fees, which I guess we'll get to in a minute. All low and moderate income housing units proposed are integrated throughout the development, are compatible in scale with the architectural style to the market rate units within the project, and will be built and occupied prior to or simultaneous with the construction and occupancy of any market rate units. The applicant should identify the units that will be low, moderate income, and ensure that they will be distributed throughout the independent living units. There will be no significant negative environmental impacts from the proposed development as shown on the final plan, with all required conditions for approval. There will be no significant negative impacts on the health and safety of current use of future residents of the community in areas including but not limited to safe circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, provision for emergency services, sewage disposal, availability of potable water, adequate surface runoff, and preservation of natural, historical, or cultural features that contribute to the attractiveness of the community. All proposed land developments and all subdivision lots will have adequate and permanent physical access to a public street in accordance with the requirements of 45-23-60, paragraph 5. The Proposed development will not result in the creation of individual lots with any physical constraints to development. That building on those lots according to pertinent regulations and building standards would be impractical unless created only as permanent open space or permanently reserved for a public purpose on the approved recorded plans. Before I get to the waivers, which would be incorporated into this motion, I'd also like to stipulate that the proposed grading around all of the proposed sand filters and sediment forebays shall be adjusted to provide a 6-inch minimum freeboard above the 100-year storm water level. The grading plans must be adjusted for the final plan submission. The 316 contour around sand filter F and its sediment forebay is not shown on the grading and drainage plan. The plan must be corrected prior to final plan submittal. That the condominium documents or HOA documents provide for relief in the event the sedimentation basin, I believe that's located in East Greenwich, is not properly maintained, including, if necessary, liens to be placed on the appropriate units within the condominium development. Included in this motion are approval of variances to the Coventry zoning ordinance as follows. Lot coverage. Applicant requests relief to increase lot coverage from 20% to 50%. Per table 610, the maximum lot coverage for other permitted uses in an R20 zone is 20%. However, the comments in table 6-1, line 5 also direct us to Article 5 on matters regarding multifamily uses. See. So the lot coverage waivers, I'm just going to say lot coverage waivers as shown in the planning director's report, section 610, table 6-7, and sections 1481. To approve the variance requested regarding wheel blocks, provided that concrete curbing with adequate distance to any walkways is provided in lieu. The applicant has requested walkways within the development in lieu of walkways along all of the roadways, which is a variance to section 1465. The applicant seeks to increase the density from 1 unit per 20,000 square feet to 1 unit per 11,000 square feet. Article Roman numeral 8B 15 monuments. The applicant shall be granted approval to place sufficient boundary markers in accordance with the rules and regulations for professional land surveying in the state of Rhode Island, with granite markers to be placed at the corners. With regard to slopes and walls, Article, what's that one? Not good with the Roman numerals. The applicant request, 14 F2, the applicant shall be allowed to construct 2-to-1 slopes as shown on the plans and increase the maximum wall height from 4 feet to 10 feet relative to the existing boulder wall, and any walls that are being proposed that are less than 4 feet, anything over what is proposed will be engineered walls. With regard to fee relief, the only fee relief that I'm going to incorporate into the motion is a full waiver on any fair share development fees on the units that are deemed affordable, which right now stands at 20 units. And I'm just not going to mention the other motion, right? We don't have to. And then if we could just incorporate the planning director's report of both 13 pages that was submitted prior to the public hearing 2 meetings ago, as well as this 4-page document that we were given tonight into the motion.
Will they be coming back for final?
And that final plans be approved administratively. No.
It's up to the board.
I don't have an issue with it being done by our staff. I have full confidence in our staff.
We'll get a second and we can
All right.
discuss it.
I hear a motion from Mr. Clooney. Do I have a second?
I second.
Second from Ms. Lukowitz. Any discussion?
Does anyone have an issue with the final going administratively?
No.
I do have one comment I'd like to make
Yes.
with regards to the motion. Early on, Mr. Clooney, when you were starting with your motion, you referenced that when you were reading the plat and lot numbers and everything, you referenced I don't know the exact quote, but basically the crux of it was that the East Greenwich parcel is really beyond our purview. And I'm going to defer to the solicitor, but I do believe there was a document signed by the attorneys for East Greenwich allowing the town of Coventry to review that as part of our process. So basically, it did fall under our purview.
I believe that is correct. And there is a document that exists that that should be from East Greenwich that should be incorporated into this decision. I think reference to that document. I know I have it in the file.
I have never seen, that was a document, I don't have that document.
I think Mr. Tights might have.
Maybe Mr. Tights would at least provide some clarity there.
Yes, and I believe I've provided it, but I'll send it again.
Do I have a signed, executed one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just want to note for the record, that applies to master plan. It does not apply to preliminary plan. It was based on the plans as it was at master plan. I'm not going to get into arguing. I understand the public hearing is closed, but there is a signed document where the town of East Greenwich did in fact, if you will, delegate review to this body in accordance with that particular document for master plan approval.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll just incorporate that into the
Okay.
into the motion.
Okay, if I could just incorporate that plan into my motion, and I stand corrected on my statement with regards to the assessors plat and lot in East Greenwich. And I would like to include that in my opening statement as to the motion that's before us.
Okay, motion amended, second amended?
Second amendment.
All right, any other discussion?
Just one discussion on the motion of the waive fees. Did that also include 10, 11, 12, and 13 fee requested?
Just the fair share.
For the applications?
The only waiver I included in my motion was the fair
Number 9.
share.
Right?
Yes.
That's how I heard it, yes.
Okay, I think I'd like to poll this. Mr. Mattson?
To go back to what he said.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, those last four, 10 through 14.
I didn't make any statement because I didn't offer to waive any fees.
Just the only thing that you waived.
In other words, I waived all of the non-monetary
share.
items, and then my motion only includes the waiver of the fair share development fees, 25%
On the affordable.
of the total number of units or the affordable units. And I just didn't mention the other ones. There was no point in saying we weren't going to waive them. I just left them.
Anything else? All right, I'd like to poll, just for clarity, Mr. Mattson. On approval?
Approve.
Ms. Lukowitz?
Approve.
Mr. Pacelli?
Approve.
Mr.
Approve.
Fluvian?
Approve.
And the chair approves also. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passes.
Thank you.
Nick, can I keep this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks.
Okay, under new business, we have a pre-applications / site walk for Tallwood Estates 17 Tallwoods LLC, proposed 62 lot residential unit development with private road creation, AP 50 lots 11 and 23 and R20, and that's at 17 Tallwoods Drive. Mr.
Good evening.
John Bernero for the applicant, 17 Tollwoods LLC. The principal of that is Mr. Assalone, who is with me this evening. And as you said, this is a parcel of land that is on Johnson's Pond, and it's located north of Wood Estates North. And it is an R20 zone, 20,000 square feet for single-family homes. We have public water through Kent County Water. We also have Providence or National Grid, Providence Gas. And again, we have a design by Commonwealth Engineering, and if I could be so kind to ask we have the one that the conventional design? Okay, we got a conventional design by Commonwealth showing 62 single-family homes on the site, and each of those sites meet all your zoning and planning regulations. Again, it's very similar to what Wood Estates North would be, or Wood Estates. That design would probably look at 3 to 4 bedroom homes. We're all gonna have OW on-site wastewater treatment systems. And again, my guesstimate, and we'll get into this as we go through, I'll have a professional do an analysis of it. But my guesstimate would be 62 single-family homes is gonna generate 100 children into your school system. There's 4 different ways in and out that we can utilize. A couple is showed there, with showing one coming in from Reservoir as emergency. There's 2 others, another one out on Sharon Drive, and another one, I believe, at the end of Tollwoods. Again, up to the Planning Commission as to which way we're going to go in and out, but I think from the standpoint that we looked out, and the one shown here is probably the most desirous for all parties. Again, what we're looking to do, and Mr. Assalone and this board, we're completing the condos down on River's Edge on 117. It's selling well, really well received by all the people that have bought them. And again, we'd like to do a project similar to that. When you look at the project that we have here, it's the same number of units. It's 62 units, the same as we can get in a conventional. We're not asking for any bonuses like you just had with the comprehensive permit. My calculations showing the 62 into the acreage of 46 approximately, it's 1 unit per 34,000 square feet of land. Again, the 20,000 underlying. This gives us the open space. It gives us significant buffers to all the homes that surround this project. It gives us the access, as I said here. The second means in is just for emergency purposes. That will just be a gravel road. And all this is going to be under a condominium concept. These are all single unit condominiums. And I think when you look at West Greenwich, which my office was involved in, right up from the center of New England, the majority of those, except for the affordable units that are in there, are single units. The people love them. They may be close together. They may be 25, 30 feet apart, but they love having their walls, not the neighbor's garage in between, okay? I know I could never live in it with my wife because she has hearing like a deer. She could hear the guy's mixer going off. So the condo concept is up. The single-family one that we have here, I think would really, really work. We are not asking for an over 55 community. We've looked at it from the standpoint of saturation, and I think the West Greenwich one, ours, and a few others throughout the state has really brought it to the point of being saturated. But as a practical matter, and I don't have it before me tonight, but I've used an individual who will do an analysis, and we'll have him for master plan, showing the number of children that generate from a condo project like this. What you normally have is young people getting married and never going to have children. They will live here. Old people like me will live here. But once you end up with a family being started, And I saw it with my own son. They lived in Manhattan. They had the little baby, and then the second one was coming. Well, now they're living in Jersey with the backyard and the swings. The same thing here. There's no top lot. There's no swings. There'll never be anything that's going to be developed in these open spaces for children. We control that, and you oversee it with the condo docs that we put in place. The whole concept on here is let it self-police. And I was very familiar with River Farms that I worked on in West Warwick years ago, and we used that as an example. And there was like 160 units in there, and there were like 3 or 4 children in there at any one time. You may have a situation that a grandparent takes the child in, but it's not a place that people are gonna go with 2 or 3 children. And these are all gonna be 2-bedroom units. There's gonna be no 3 bedrooms. They are not all gonna be the same. This shows it just a square block, but as we get into this, we're gonna be looking at designing units similar in nature. But if someone wants a 1,600 square foot unit, we can design it that it looks similar. Someone wants 18, someone wants 2, but again, limiting the bedrooms to only 2. That's what our design is going to be. Again, I'm looking at the fair share, what you just talked about. You got 60 units, roughly, almost $500,000 coming into the town. But the real fact is going to be going forward with 62 units. I don't have the numbers right now, but we will at Master Plan show you what the projected cash flow to the town in taxes versus the expenses. And those expenses are basically fire, which really is their own private here. We put in the roads, we maintain the roads, we plow the roads, we pick up the trash. And again, all we ask for the fire department or rescue in the event of an emergency. But it is a cash positive flow to this town and community. There's, as I said, there's one entrance. And that being said, I know you guys would like to have a site walk. I'd love to come there, show you what it is. It's one of the nicest pieces of land that I've walked through in my entire career. I'm going to recommend that on your site walk that we do come in from Reservoir Road. That's probably the easiest way, John. Am I correct? Down by Keith's house and into your...
Right here, if I may, I think
Sure, John.
if you're up to it, if you go back to the other plan, the master, the large one of that. If you parked in this cul-de-sac here, right here.
Okay.
You would have an amazing walk to really get everything on this job. They're not gonna wanna walk 3/4 of a mile.
Okay. If they do, start at the bottom. That's the most important.
Is this a Sunday afternoon site walk?
John, could you provide a golf cart? Provide a golf cart.
The canoe.
Let's start at the bottom, and we'll work up the hill.
All right, so
Russ, am I correct?
I would start at Reservoir Road.
Yeah.
Reservoir Road all the way to the end. You go by Keith White's house.
Yep.
And then there's this nice, beautiful little cottage right over there. There's all parking right in here.
Yeah.
Underneath the trees.
John, I feel you.
We'll walk up the hill.
Yeah, no, yes, you could. But then there's all these trails if you wanted to walk. If you didn't want to walk, you could stay down there by your car.
Right. Like Joe Volsho, God rest him, used to do.
One thing.
Go ahead.
The experience we've had, and thanks to your support on it over the way, we wound up with many homes in Westwood Estates, 2 bedrooms. Our ratio of children was 0.005 for the entire community because of the 2 bedrooms. But I would also like to incorporate, if it's allowable, it could be done, like, I want to go what's called we haven't really decided on this yet, but we want to, like to call it a land dominium, where people own their parcel of land. And I think I just think there would be more care in the property besides, that's an idea, and taking some of the area and making that 55 and older, just for them. And if that's legal, I'd like to pursue that.
We could do the landominium, and that's basically the limited common areas on it. Whether you can segregate, I don't know, I'll defer that to a condo expert.
Because I think with the landominium, that property can be clearly 55 and older and deeded that way. So it's just an idea. Thank you.
Again, we're at the beginning of it, and as I said, it's a situation that I think it would be great. It's one of the prettiest sites that I've seen on the pond, and it's at one of the widest spots of the pond, and it is a beautiful piece. So whenever you gentlemen and ladies can make the site walk, we'll be there. You tell us.
Can I ask a couple of
Oh,
questions?
no, God, yes.
Why not access through reservoir? I gotta ask.
When you
Probably know that
okay,
answer.
when you get down to the end of reservoir, you're gonna see the reason on it.
Okay.
It's very, very narrow at that particular point, and if Russ, if you could go back up there, there's not much room to do anything on it, and you're gonna be really down at the water and then trying to come up on it. If you look at the other plan that we have, with keeping away, it does fall off quickly right there.
Okay.
Okay, and again, you can see the gradient coming right down on it.
My other question was, how would the water front be utilized?
How
Would
would-
it be for everyone in the development?
I had a great idea.
Okay.
Somebody else-
I feel your passion,
No,
John.
somebody else probably helped me with it. But here's the idea.
Okay.
This you will not see. This meets all the standards that DEM is going to capture, all the drainage will be covered, it will be green. And the background on this, I'll just take a few minutes. I wanted to do nothing on this property, except open it up to people, and then let the kids do something with it. And there was a hardship from the waterfront snobs, only some. A lot of people, way here, you can't come, we don't want you camping, boating. So we did that for a year. But there are certain concerns about the pond with respect. It's good water, it's clean water. So, if you can move this up a little bit, I would intend to have, or I would plan with your approval, take a trail for any of these homes that are not on the waterfront, a trail only to a ramp that is down here for canoe and kayak. So it would be kind of like we did my dad did a long time ago with the States, that people, although it never gets crowded on the island, people feel, and they can, go down, have a picnic, and enjoy. Regarding real boating on the lake. These homes here, we're going to ask for permission for one slim dock for each 2 units. So you're talking about probably 10 docks. And we have the left-hand side of the dock, we have the right-hand side of the dock. We're not talking about monster boats here. But if people are on the water, they're paying for that view and paying for that spot, I think they're entitled to have a boat. And so it's not going to overpopulate the water. So that's the idea. Give the people here a right to go down in the water, give the people here the ability to have a mooring for one boat on each side of the dock. If that makes sense.
And John, I appreciate your passion. I grew up on that pond, so I have a lot of passion for that pond.
Look, you never know who's going to object, but this gives everybody, the other plan the Commonwealth had, and Karen said, look, that plan is just, we're going to be lucky to we'll make all the standards, but we're going to be lucky to have that much green area that you see. It would be hard to do that. This is quite real. You can have this, and everybody can have that.
It creates a great buffer of I know we're gonna have a huge amount of people. Don't put it in my backyard, but looking at this and you look at those row of homes there, how far the distance is between the proposed units and their homes versus the conventional.
Right.
And on the conventional, they're gonna build a home, they're gonna put the shed in the back. This is a condo. They can't put sheds, again, the condo concept as you all know, is the control. It has to remain that way. It can't be, additions put on, you can't have your backyard shed. No, those things are prohibited.
I might be wrong, but I think people in other states, when they realize how the traffic is 1, 2, 3, probably 4 areas, these people to disperse. And like my son and probably other people coming up, or certainly a little bit younger than me, people don't go to work at 7:30 in the morning, on a road, they stay home, they do the computer, they do something else. So as soon as they get here, they can come out here, they can come through here. And I do not see a lot of objections coming from the people who are states north. That can be completely wrong, because they're gonna have the greatest buffer they can imagine.
Yes.
Or the quietest area that they can imagine. So you have to give up something, but I don't see that kind of a problem coming. I don't know. Maybe the people on Reservoir Road, but
So you're not utilizing Reservoir Road?
No.
You're putting an
Yeah.
emergency
Yeah,
gate.
when you go down Reservoir, you're gonna see why. It
Never
gets,
been down all the way. So.
it gets really tight when you get down at the end. It's okay at the beginning, and it narrows down. Richard can tell you with a truck going in there.
Yeah.
You're not putting 2 trucks going back and forth.
No way.
No.
That's a lot of open space, though.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piece of property.
Yeah.
I know it from the waterfront.
Yeah, well, when you walk it, you're really gonna appreciate the beauty of it.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I do. Did you see the the Public Works Director's comments yet?
No,
All right. Well, there's nothing on here major, just recommendations. We'll save it, but
okay.
what is the 50-foot wide parcel intersection with Sharon? It's shown off, I wasn't quite sure where that was on the plan.
They had this parcel.
Yeah,
we're talking about.
yeah.
Stub. Yeah.
Okay, that is a right of way that we have. It is a.
It's not a right-of-way, it's part of your property.
Well, you pay taxes on that, right? I would assume.
Yes, it's part of the, when Coventry survey did our survey, it indicated that was part of the legal description.
So that lot is included with this lot,
Yes, it is.
and does anyone else have rights to it, or it's,
No.
as far as you know, no?
There is a dispute right now from some neighbors who were encroaching on it, but in my legal opinion, they have not acquired any rights.
It doesn't lie as to what was there 10 years ago. Some of these machinations were done within 10 years. And that was Mr. Janikis, who doesn't really represent the area, but he was down at the end of this
Yeah.
road. And these people, I think, would be most happy that there was no traffic on that road. And it's a pretty steep drop down onto that road.
I just wanted, because I couldn't see what the call out was. And John, at the beginning, I know you talked about the conventional with the ISDS. Is this going to be sewer or septic?
Oh, no, these are all
On-site,
septics.
all
Right.
on-site, and
Again,
slabs or full foundations?
Full foundations, more than likely,
This will lend
yes.
itself, a lot of this will lend itself, I think you would appreciate in the end the variation that you can have here, because of the different slopes. You can have garage under, you can have,
Yeah.
you can have walkout. And if people want a slab, some of the old people that just have one step for everything will be able to accommodate that also.
I'm just curious, because I saw the contours, and then I also knew how the proximity to the pond,
Right.
but I'm also familiar, if you go down Sharon Drive, you look, it's up the hill back
Right.
there.
But the concept on the septic designs, gonna have normally, and I talked to the engineer on it briefly yesterday. His recommendation right now is that we look at DEM with 2 units with 1 system, okay?
We did that
yeah.
at,
No, that's fine.
we did that at
It's a
West.
condominium, you
Yeah.
can do it.
No, you can do it. And again, if it's more, friendly environmentally, we'll put 4 on one. I don't know. I've done some in Westerly, in Hopkinton, that we had 4 of them on one, but they were a 4-plex. But whether it makes sense or not, I don't know. But we'll look, that's way down the road, but that's the idea that we had.
John, the gated community, is it like an electronic fence type of thing?
Well, we'd like to do that. My concern on that is the snow.
Yeah.
The snow in Rhode Island. Probably gonna have heat tapes there, I'm not sure. Or a gate that swings high, so we're just Well, no, the idea would be to have a gated community electronic. That's the goal. And, I don't see people, when we get into a condo, I've always found people really know who belongs to that.
Yeah.
Some people will drive through, but it's pretty private, so the goal is a gated community.
I can envision a lot of snowbirds if there's still.
Yeah, myself included.
Utilize the summer.
He
and
doesn't know
that's
what
right.
unit I'm
the
buying.
snowbirds, I can vision a lot of them.
But, you know, the gated one, in the wintertime with snow, it is a problem. And again, a lot of them that have put the low gates in, you gotta leave them open in the winter. But you really have to have them up a couple of feet, and basically at that time of the year, you might have to just leave them up. But they use a little transponder that they put in the vehicle. You pull up, it opens it up. You come the other way, there's a line. If they lose the transponder, they can call me. Good luck. But it's, you know, we like to keep it as a gated community, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Now, John, are there gonna be any fire hydrants through the?
Whatever the chief wants.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, we will have public water lines going through here, and whatever the fire department needs, they will be in there, yes, most certainly.
We pay daily for them to Kent County.
Oh, yes.
You gotta throw that in there.
Do we have a half an hour to talk about Kent County water? No, okay.
I almost called it yesterday. My water was brown.
Call them,
yesterday.
really, you give them a call.
I waited a few hours and it was okay.
Okay, we
I was
wanna-
gonna call Russ.
All right, what's the date?
Miss Lukowicz, you wanna set up a sidewalk?
Yes.
Carl, did you have a question for me?
Oh, sorry,
You
Carl.
also have this, map on the back, is this completely different design?
Let me come up,
That's the one.
That's the yield plan. That's the yield plan. That was the other one that we had up there. This is the one with the conventional process on it. Okay.
That's to show you how bad it can get.
Yeah.
If I can just explain that to the board on the yield plan, Carl, what that plan is, that's a conventional subdivision that they have to design that meets all of our standards in the subdivision regs. That plan is what sets how many units they can put in. So they demonstrated on that plan 62 single-family house lots. So now, when they switch to condos, that 62 is the maximum number they're allowed. So that's why they had to prepare that plan for the board. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
All right, is this like a backup plan in case the other one doesn't work?
Okay.
And I apologize, Carl. Anybody else before we set the sidewalk have any questions? Okay.
Okay, October 5th, 9 o'clock. It's on a
October 5th?
Saturday.
Okay,
Rain date on the 12th at 9.
9 o'clock. Okay, Reservoir Road on the 12th. You'll see me on the 5th, but the 12th, I gotta go take care of my grandson. So you'll have Tom Cronin there. Okay.
Who's going to, I just hope somebody likes to walk, will go to the other side and walk down the hill.
I will take them up the top of the hill, I promise.
I nominate Rick
Yeah,
Colunian.
I'll walk since the spraying is gonna be done. I'll walk.
Oh, they're gonna
No,
spray tonight.
I'd be glad to walk through there.
Okay.
Like I said, I feel your passion, so I'll.
Thanks for the local
Yeah.
land plans.
Well, John, I wanna thank you, just for doing so much that you do in Coventry.
All right, you're very kind.
Well,
And I had a lot of help though, you know, I just really have.
yeah, I know.
I always tried to give you something decent. Thank you very much.
And is it all that green, that's gonna be still all trees?
All over the space.
That's gonna remain in its natural state.
Yeah, that
there's
makes
enough-
me happy.
There's enough
Yeah.
room around all those units to do all the construction. We won't have to touch anything in those.
Good. Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you on the 5th.
Now I gotta ask for any planning department updates or discussions.
No, we're all set this evening.
Now I'll
Thank
take
you.
the motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, Mr. Masson, second by Mr. Hanson, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.